Welcome back to A Game of Fangs and Thrones. My name's Hannah. I write books and occasionally I read them too. Now, today, as this is going up, not as I'm filming, today hopefully is the release date of my second book from Witches and Wolves. Ha ha ha. This is obviously a continuation of this book, which is A Little Piece of Magic. And I'll read the back because, as you might have guessed by the title of this video, I'm going to read the first chapter so you guys can see what it's all about. So, Riley is a witch on a mission, survived living with her roommate who was a massive crush on the neighbour, and heal from the scars of an absent father and an abusive ex. Digging into her family history to find her mother uncovers a secret that will rock the very foundations of the hidden witch society who have outcast her. Riley is a rare kind of witch, able to talk to animals, but she discovers through a ghostly witch hunter and her honky werewolf mate that her power is so much more. So, oh, it's so dark, you can't see it. Chapter 1. The baby across the hall was definitely teething. The cries had been pretty consistent for the last week. The poor boy was keeping the whole floor awake, even old Mrs. Brown had been complaining about the noise. If I didn't know any better, I'd swear the baby was half siren. I'd been enjoying a thankfully dream-free night until the screeching woke me up. It felt like I'd been trying to get back to sleep for at least an hour. The obnoxiously bright screen of my phone told me it was 5:30 in the morning. I'd only been awake for 5 long minutes. I had forgotten how loud babies could be, but couldn't forget the sleepless nights my step-siblings had put us all through when they were growing up. I grabbed a dressing gown from the back of my door and made my way to the kitchen. There was a lot of chocolate with my name on it, unless Ivy had stolen it. I was just tying the sash of my dressing gown around my waist and battling a jaw-breaking yawn when Ivy unlocked our front door. She looked as perfect as ever, not a blonde hair out of place, but I couldn't hate her when she clearly had a mug of something hot and sweet on the bench for me. Could smell the cinnamon from here. Ivy knew how to make a good chai latte. "How long do you think it will take for Chase to knock?" I asked, my hands wrapped around the warming mug. "About 5 seconds. There's herbs in the fridge already prepared." "And are you prepared?" I couldn't help but tease. I was rewarded with a cushion to the face and giggled, but was glad I'd put my cup down. Ivy was puffing up, ready to go on an unconvincing rant about how she only liked Chase as a friend when the screaming stopped for about 2 seconds. We shared a quick glance in equal parts worry and relief before the baby started up again. I had to strain my ears to hear in the midst of the screaming, but there was a timid knocking on our door. It swung open to reveal the red-faced, screaming baby and his flustered dad. "Riley, Ivy, did Oscar wake you up again?" Chase ran a hand through his messy hair. "The doctor says he's just teething, but I need him to sleep." "So does the whole tower," I muttered. "Sorry, I didn't mean that." Chase flashed a tired smile at me. "Yes, you did. I didn't think babies could be so loud." I shrugged and sipped at my tea. You kind of get used to it after a while. A couple of years ago I would have been able to sleep through it. A light seemed to go on in Chase's eyes. "So you can make it stop?" "Don't bother asking her. She'd sleep through a storm if she could." Ivy's teasing was good-natured but contained a hint of truth. "Leave it to me. I'll fix Oscar something." Chase turned his grateful smile onto Ivy and she giggled, blushed, and played with her hair. They were cute together, and it was like watching a Hallmark movie about 2 clueless friends to lovers. Ivy was my best friend and Chase was kind of cute, just not my type. I think it took longer than it needed to be to get some leafy green stuff out of the fridge. I'm no expert, but I saw lavender and willow bark. Chase was using every excuse he could to touch Ivy. I turned my face away. It felt like I was intruding on something personal. "Thanks, Ivy. I owe you one. If this works, the whole tower will owe you." Ivy blushed as red as one of Oscar's toys and waved a hand. "It's nothing. You should see what my mother can do." "Your mother doesn't like me, remember?" "You shaved the cat, Chase." I choked on my tea, and suddenly the would-be lovebirds remembered they weren't alone. Sensing his moment, Oscar, who had been happily gumming his frozen plastic teething ring, started to squirm in Chase's arms, and his little face twisted up. Well, I should probably get this little one down. My dad's coming to visit for a couple of days. Him and Mum don't get on at the best of times, and trying to explain Oscar, Well, let's just say we're all going to need as much sleep as we can get. Well, say hi to your dad for me, Ivy said, gathering up some herbs and pushed them into Chase's free hand. This is good for clearing the air, creates a calming influence. Chase gave Ivy a quick one-armed hug and then left our tiny two-bedroom flat. Ivy gave a happy, contented little sigh as she flopped down into her free armchair. Ivy, you're the best herbalist I know, but you really need to grow up here and ask him out, I said sometime later, when Oscar had settled and silence reigned supreme once more. We're just friends. Riley, you need to get out of your head if you think we're more than that. I shrugged. I know what I saw, and when it came to other people, my instincts were usually spot on, a part of my own magical gifts. It was when it came to my own love life that it went a bit haywire. It was too early for there to be anything decent on TV, but we were both too awake to sleep. We'd only have to get back up for work again. I curled up in my chair and picked up my book. Not my usual type of read, but informative and relevant. A gift from Mrs. Brown the last time I went to see her. Ivy, how did you know you were a herbalist? Ivy glanced up from her knitting and sighed. Is this about your mother again? Kinda. The older I get and the more the witch community expects of me, the more I realise I missed out on. And this book really isn't helping. And it's not like we know any other animalists who can help you out. At least you have me and the girls. Don't forget you said you would finally go out with them. I smiled and then glanced at the clock on the wall. Sighing, I pulled myself out of the chair and got ready to start my day. I used to enjoy my job before, but thanks to Nick, I didn't feel comfortable in that role anymore. I'd just taken the first job that would have me. I just needed to get away. If you want me to take you to work, you better hurry up. Ivy's voice sounded funny coming through the closed door. On my way, I quickly ran a brush through my hair and double-checked that I looked presentable enough. This goes above and beyond roommate duty. I'm your friend. It's what I do. She smiled, holding out my jacket and bag. And if you get fired, you can't make your half of the rent. I smiled. My allowance from the witches more than covers it. True, just try and keep your temper under control. I'll pick you up about 5. I laughed softly and fished my ID card out of my jacket pocket, ready to swipe it on the run when Ivy dropped me off. She didn't like the car park very much. The pay wasn't great and the job was really repetitive, but it gave me the normalcy I needed. I wasn't anyone special on the call floor and I blended into a crowd. It wasn't the worst job in the world, and while it wasn't my dream job, it was a good job for right now. Didn't quite have the same social graces as Ivy, but I was passable. I must be doing something right since I was being trained up in the new element of the product. I guess it helped that I actually believed in what I was selling. Ivy was proof it worked, and the bosses had used her as a success story for the website. My day went past really quickly. October is one of the busiest times for weight loss companies. Calls were queuing all day and the air conditioning was broke again. I'd never been so glad to see the clock tick over to 5 o'clock. As soon as the digital numbers ticked over on the computer screen, I was logged out and waiting for Ivy in the lobby. She had just texted me to say rather than drive, she just ordered a taxi. All I had to do was just wait for it and pay my share. I didn't have to wait long, especially since it was Friday night. The bar wasn't that far from home and it was really cheap too. It did decent food, which at that current moment in time was all my stomach cared about. Lunch felt so long ago. I ordered my usual of a burger and onion rings. I was just digging in when Ivy told me the girls were on their way. My appetite suddenly disappeared and my stomach cramped. I took a few deep breaths and sipped at my gin and lemonade. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears and my toes kept kneading the inside sole of my shoes. Luckily, Ivy didn't notice my anxiety, either because of Chase's presence nearby or because her friends had just walked in. They had to be her friends. There was something about them, they just had a magnetic presence. Ivy had talked about them so much I felt like I already knew them. Georgie led the pack of gorgeous girls. She was blonde and successfully cutting through the packed bar like a ship through water. Her blue eyes twinkled, and I swear I could smell salt. Holding her hand was an equally stunning dark-skinned girl with an amazing afro that was dyed bright blue. I narrowed my eyes slightly and saw the slightest curl of steam winding its way up from their clasped hand. I wish the ground would swallow me up. Georgie, Layla, and Ivy all looked so put together, and I looked like I'd just gotten out of bed. I relaxed a little bit when I saw Alice. The air elemental looked like she'd almost lost a battle with one of her own tornadoes, and I think I saw a bird feather in her hair. The three girls sat down, and after a brief chat, Layla went up to the bar. It was still early. Most drinkers were going home first to freshen up ready for the big Friday night. Layla was up and served within 5 minutes. She'd bought one drink too many. "Is Eloise running a little bit late?" Ivy asked, pointing at the wine glass no one had claimed. "Yeah, she just had a work thing. It ran over a little." Georgie shrugged. "So tell us about yourself, Riley. What do you do?" "Oh, well, I work in a call centre," I shrugged, suddenly feeling embarrassed. These girls were super successful and I was on the lowest rung of the career ladder. I was safe from having to say anything else because Eloise waltzed in. If I thought the other three magnetic, it was nothing compared to Eloise. She was the light that drew the moths in. She wore simple earth tones and a tailored suit that probably cost more than my wages for a month. As she drew closer, I could smell summer harvests and fresh apples. There was a confidence to her stride that I once had, but her sparkling gold-flecked brown eyes were kind. She sat down and her regal posture slipped, and she became one of us. Eloise was someone who, despite appearances, shared with me the same expectations and pressures that were thrust upon us at birth. We were expected to be queens among witches. She wore it better than me, though. Ivy had a knack for attracting confident and powerful women. I had to wonder what that said about me. Eloise and I shared a nod, an informal greeting of one ear to another. I can't remember what else we talked about. I think the lack of a mother came up. It was bound to. Eloise and I were both the first of our line. Our gold-flecked eyes were a telltale sign of that. Halloween is coming up. We're a complete coven now. We should do something for it, Layla said once she was 3 wine glasses into the night. Are you planning anything? You've got that whole weekend off, Georgie. Why don't we have a party? Here, we could ask Chase if this place is free. I don't know how Chase heard our conversation, but it was like the way a dog always knew when its owner was in the room. It could have been hearing his name or hearing the magic word party. He was at our table almost a second after the word was out of Layla's mouth. Chase really reminded me of a puppy, and Ivy wasn't helping. I'm pretty sure she was melting into a puddle next to me and her eyes were as big as dinner plates. Wait, party. Ivy was so flustered. I gave her a sharp kick under the table. She glared at me but was able to get out her question in a slightly breathless rush. Do you guys actually want it on Halloween, or is the night after okay? I kind of want to take Oscar trick-or-treating on the day. That works for me. I was going to take my little sisters out as well. Eloise spoke up and she had a gorgeous lilting Scottish accent. Georgie's accent was English, a more cultured version of my own northern one, and I think Layla's was American. A sweet southern drawl was like a country singer's, and I almost knew what she was going to be in her next show at work. What about you, Riley? What are you planning? Eloise asked gently, probably expecting me to have some exciting plans like her. I'm going to spend it with my grandparents, I shrugged slightly. I need to recharge in nature, and my grandpa lives on the border. You're an animalist, aren't you? Yeah, the only one I know, and my dad didn't really help. That must have been hard, Layla cooed softly. Your ink is incredible. Oh, thanks. I hadn't realised that my sleeve had been pushed up, showing off the 2 tattoos I'd had done not long after I moved to the city. Sensing I wasn't ready to talk about them, Georgie glanced my way. So, are we doing couple costumes? Layla grinned and launched into a rapid-fire conversation about possible costume ideas. Georgie caught my eye and I nodded at her. She smiled softly and tapped at her wrist. I hadn't noticed until that point that her wrist was covered in various bracelets. She understood what my ink hid. She had her own secrets. Chase wandered back to do some work. He had some sweet talking he needed to do if he was going to get Halloween and the night after off. I did wonder how he still had a job. I'm pretty sure he spent more time hovering around our table. Ivy noticed, and the more she drank, the more flustered she got. I think the guy on the table next to us thought she was flirting. He tried, but she only had eyes for Chase, or her booze. When she nearly launched herself off the table trying to go to the toilet, I decided it was time to call it a night. Georgie helped me bundle her partner into a taxi and made sure that the rest of us were set. It was decided that Eloise was just going to stay with us tonight since she was pretty half-cut and told us she didn't want to go home. I didn't blame her. I knew how bad nursing a hangover could be with lots of noise and questions. Eloise only had 2 younger siblings. I had 5 half-siblings with another on the way. I made sure the girls were comfortable, Ivy in her room and Eloise on the sofa. The fact that they let themselves get so drunk they couldn't stand up straight had my heart pounding and my mouth going dry. I ended up locking the door and then going back 3 more times to check it. On the 3rd trip, I made sure that the girls had some water and painkillers for the morning. It took me a while to settle down, and even the boring witch handbook wasn't sending me to sleep this time. I felt like I was about to run a mile, the adrenaline flooding my system. Just being out in a place with alcohol and new people was too much, and every time I closed my eyes, I replayed flashbacks from the last party I was forced to attend. Somehow I managed it, and when I woke up, I was tired. Now I remembered why I didn't socialise very much. At least Halloween wasn't too far away, so I wouldn't have to talk myself out of this. I was seeing my grandfather later, and that was the best news I had all week. I couldn't help but grin at the moans coming from the main room. I think Ivy was puking, and there was a vindictive streak in me that was singing. I'm not against people drinking and having a good time, but I enjoyed my lazy, quiet mornings more than any hangover I'd ever gotten. Ivy was the herbalist, but anybody could whip up a decent hangover cure. I tried my best. At least it didn't poison them and was enough to get the girls up and about. I wanted to go out for breakfast, but wouldn't be able to enjoy it as much if I knew the girls were suffering. Once my makeshift cure had taken the edge off Ivy's hangover, she was able to make her perfect recipe. I was kicked out of my own kitchen, but it was worth it when Eloise declared she was going to treat us to breakfast. Let me just hop in your shower and freshen up, then we can be off. We're about the same size. Ivy gave Eloise a quick assessing glance. Help yourself to a change of clothes. I'll get yours washed up and send them back to you. Oh, that's too much. I couldn't take your clothes. From one air to another, Eloise, Ivy's whole being is about hospitality. You'll insult her if you don't. I didn't want to play the air card, but if I didn't, Ivy and Eloise would be arguing all morning. And I'm hungry. I could hear her laughing all the way to the shower. After breakfast, I had arranged to spend the weekend at my grandfather's place in the countryside. I needed to be in nature the way Ivy needed a garden, especially after the week I'd had, and then there was a meeting I needed to prepare for with Mrs. Brown. I was hoping they'd help me with that. I really missed Fang as well and couldn't wait to reconnect with my familiar. She grounded me more than any candle or ritual ever could. So, that was the first chapter of A Little Piece of Magic by me. The details for this, why do I keep showing you? It's so dark. But the details for A Little Piece of Magic and its sequel from Witches and Wolves are in the description box down below. Both are on Kindle Unlimited, both available as an ebook and both available in print copy. And if you do like it, please rate and review. It really helps me out. And I think that's the end of this video. So if you liked it, if you want to see more, give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and let's see this, talk about these, and I'll see you in whatever comes next. Bye.